The big joke is that the really difficult rocket science part of the problem, the physics, was figured out ages ago. The stuff holding the rocket back now is actually grunt work. What you need at this point are relentless problem-solving mechanics, not PhDs.
64,000 is the median number of words per book. Average person reads about 200 words per minute. Simple math will tell us that is one book in 320 minutes. To accomplish this in 7 days, numbers say you would have to read for 45 minutes a day. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that notification button, like, comment, and share. Enjoy.
Welcome to the Book of the Week series. Every week as I read another amazing title, I share it with the world. My name is Igor S.F. Walker, and today we look at When the Heavens Went on Sale. The Misfits and Geniuses Racing to Put Space Within Reach by Ashlee Vance. So, how about you slow down and relax? Reduce all that noise for just a bit. Make that choice and decide to listen. In this video, we look at time in human history when the space race moved away from the governments and into the private sector. This book is not about SpaceX. I would, however, argue that you do need to know about the Falcon 1 and all that went into it, because that machine set the action that actually takes place in this book in motion and quite likely change the course of human history. Stick around till the end. I will share with you some tools I do have and use that will help you tremendously in this game of life. Discover a way to find out what actually motivates you, what innate human need is driving all of your decisions and your behavior. I will share some tools to improve your self-awareness, your social awareness, your self-management, and relationship management. In the most practical of terms, the Falcon 1 established SpaceX as the first private company to build a low-cost rocket that could reach orbit. In more symbolic terms, the SpaceX engineers shattered the natural order of things. While not at all clear back in 2008, the first launch into orbit would emerge as an inciting incident. Like Roger Bannister's besting the 4th minute mile. SpaceX made people recalibrate their sense of limitations when it came to getting to space. The imaginations and the passions of engineers and dreamers all around the world expanded. A turning point had occurred and a space frenzy had been ignited. The story of space, since the United States and Soviet Union had first started racing to the moon, had largely centered on the actions of a handful of governments. It took the might of United States, China, and the European Union to actually fund a rocket program. Now, those entities had turned space into a rare and a pressure commodity. The handful of wealthy individuals who had tried in the years past to make their rockets and then alter the balance of power had actually failed. More broadly, SpaceX had rejected many of the quote-unquote truths held by the old government-backed aerospace industry. It actually demonstrated that a novel approach to rocketry could work. Rockets didn't need to be made out of pricey space-grade equipment that had been certified as worthy for the job by these specialist contractors. Consumer electronics had improved so much that off-the-shelf products are often good enough to survive the rigors of space travel. Major advances in software, powerful computers, also meant that engineers could now accomplish far more than they had in the past. New things were possible. Engineers, entrepreneurs, and investors saw what SpaceX had accomplished and then began to have their own wild visions of what they actually might achieve. They too could ride the wave of ever-progressing electronics, computers, and software, and then create their own space companies. Now, what the public had paid less attention to is the frantic amount of activity taking place among hundreds of other companies scattered all around the world who are building new types of rockets and satellites. These companies are locked in a race that actually feels more immediate and more tangible than humans taking laps around the moon or doing their laundry on Mars. See, from the 1960s to the 2020, the number of satellites put in space had increased at a slow and steady pace, resulting in about 2,500 machines orbiting the Earth. Now, most of them were sent up to perform jobs for military entities, for communication companies, and for scientists. Then, from 2020 to 2022, something astonishing happened. The number of satellites doubled to 5,000. Over the next decade, that figure is set to increase to somewhere between 50,000 and 100,000 satellites, depending on whose business plans you actually do believe. The satellites will beam high-speed internet services to the 3.5 billion people who actually cannot be reached by fiber optic cables today. What's more, they will actually blanket the globe with the ever-present internet heartbeat that will let drones, cars, planes, and all manners of computing devices and sensors send and receive data no matter where they are. Now, beyond the space internet, there are already hundreds of satellites orbiting the Earth, taking pictures and video of everything that happens below on a near hourly basis. Unlike existing spy satellites that actually feed their images to governments, these new imaging satellites are owned by young startup companies that allow almost anyone to purchase the pictures they actually take. The satellites, aided by artificial intelligence software, can actually peer down and monitor the sum total of human activity. They are, in effect, a real-time accounting system of the Earth. Now, instead of $1 billion each, the new satellites cost anywhere from $100,000 to a few $1 million. Now, they range in size from something as big as a pack of cards to a shoebox to, say, a refrigerator. And in a typical year, about 100 rockets make their way into the orbit to drop off payloads. China, Russia, and the United States account for about 3/4 of these launches, with Europe, India, and Japan making up the rest. But things are no longer typical when it comes to space. And there are simply not enough rockets to meet the demand of all the companies and all the governments actually looking to fly those tens of thousands of satellites into orbit. Myriad of other small rocket companies wants to join in the frenzy. Most of them are actually absurdly understaffed and underfunded, and they're actually run by rocket hobbyists aspiring to something more magnificent. About 10 of them, though, are actually legitimate and have actual shots at getting into the rocket game. A number of them are based in the United States, while others are Australia, Europe, and in Asia. Without question, the companies manufacturing small rockets suffer from a major problem. They simply cannot take much cargo into space. If you actually pack a $60 million SpaceX rocket with hundreds or thousands of small satellites, it will actually get them into space all at once at a lower cost per pound than a cheaper, smaller rocket. Think a single 18-wheeler versus dozens of minivans. Now, what the smaller rocket makers are banking on is that many companies and governments will send a lot more stuff to space a lot more often if they actually know that there's always a cheap ride available. The satellites will also watch and analyze the Earth in previously unfathomable ways. The data centers that have reshaped life on our planet will actually be transported into orbit. We are, in effect, building a computing shell around the planet. Though this process has been emerging over the decades, the pace at which it has been actualized in recent years is breathtaking, inspiring, and unnerving. To put actually a fine point on all these things, space is now open for business. The heavens, like everything, went on sale. Idealism, passion, invention, ego, greed, the usual suspects are all there, inciting action, but so too is the underlying bond that propels the great illusion forward. That you not ask too many questions, think about consequences for too long, or let reality interfere with your hopes and dreams. After all, this is space. It's best just to say, fuck it, let's do this thing because we kind of have to. Because Elon Musk is cool and rockets are cool. SpaceX consumed most of the public attention when it came to new things happening way up above. And the notion that the economics of space might actually be changing. People closer to the space industry, though, were just as enthused by planet's accomplishments. It appeared that the rules of engagement were actually changing fast regarding both how we get to space and what we can do upon arriving in orbit. When all added together, SpaceX and Planet actually cemented the belief of those who wanted to believe that private industry could push governments out of the way and then come to dominate activity in space. The notion that a new economy was being formed in low orbit of Earth felt more real than ever. From 2017 and on, billions upon billions of investment dollars began to float towards space startups. The questions a curious onlooker might have asked around that time was, how did Planet came into existence? How did a guy who sleeps on shed floors and his two equally unusual chums end up building a system capable of recording Earth's every undulation. See, Worden, then in his late 50s, thought that, like Musk, he could be an agent of change to play a major role in the movement of something of a go-between link, the two worlds, old space and new space. All he needed to do is find a place where he could actually combine his deep knowledge of space and the inner workings of the government with the Silicon Valley speed and drive. And as luck would have it, a job opened up at just such an idyllic location. Like Worden, Griffin had a fondness for doing weird stuff in space and an appreciation of the Silicon Valley startup ethos. Griffin began to think that perhaps Worden could shake up Ames and bring some new space tech-friendly people to the place. So he tapped him as an Ames director in May 2006. Whether in business, politics, science, or whatever, the best thing to do is find somebody who is actually smarter and disagrees with you, said Worden himself. The hardest thing to do is change the order of things, because everybody that has something to gain will be a lukewarm supporter, and anybody that has something to lose becomes your vicious enemy. So you end up with a very difficult challenge. Almost all of the imaging satellites in space were actually controlled by governments, research bodies, or a handful of companies. It was a small, not terribly forward-thinking club. The satellites cost anywhere from $250 million to $1 billion. They tended to be large, about the size of a van or a smaller school bus. They also usually took several years to design and to launch, and were actually meant to keep working in space for as many as 20 years. Now, because of their high cost, they were actually relatively rare commodities. Not even the United States government had all the spy satellites it actually desired. The imaging industry, for the most part, could actually snap pictures only now and again, and only of spots of known interests. Now, the satellites Marshall and Bechusen dreamed about were basically disposable. Instead of having a lifespan of 20 years, the small, cheap satellites would actually be designed to orbit Earth for 3 to 5 years. Then they would tumble back down into the atmosphere and burn up on re-entry. Now, rare photos from actually odd moments in time would now be replaced by a constantly updating record of, well, everything. There are hundreds of planet satellites traveling overhead, mostly doves, and about 24 of the big boys. The technology has improved enough that Planet can snap at least 12 photos of a single location on planet Earth in one day. The whole network takes well over 4 million photos per day. And Planet's archive has an average of 2,000 pictures of every spot on the Earth's landmass. Think about that for a quick second. Just process that. You are no doubt familiar with products such as Google Earth and Google Maps that actually seem to do similar work. With Planet and other companies with novel AI tools that they have built, they can make and they will make gold products seem like toys. What has become clear in recent years, however, is that regulators cannot keep pace with the launches of the wills of the people leading these various companies. Musk and others keep launching their rockets in satellites, while people on the ground spend months or sometimes even years debating the regulatory merits of the various constellations. It is game on. This era has been coming and coming. The small launch race is over. We have proven it can be done. Much of the aerospace industry surprise. Rocket Lab launched another rocket, placing a number of satellites into orbit for NASA, just as it had promised. Now, there would be no successful launches from Rocket Lab's competitor that year, or in 2019, or in 2020. It was Rocket Labs and SpaceX, and no one else. To outsiders, Rocket Lab may have still looked like a minor player in the aerospace industry. SpaceX and Musk were like black holes of attention, sucking up any and all available press when it comes to new space. Beck had nowhere near the celebrity shine of Musk in his own country or anywhere else for that matter. However, people in the space industry marveled at Rocket Lab. Electron, their first rocket, was considered to be perhaps the most perfectly engineered small rocket that had ever been made. Whereas SpaceX, first 3 launches ended up in flames, Rocket Lab's first 3 had been just about perfect. Only a software mishap outside of the company's control had actually stained an otherwise immaculate track record. No new rocket program had ever started like this. Rocket Lab and Beck had actually figured things out that had stomped everyone else in the past. The company and its culture were actually rarities in an industry that prided itself on being inhabited by the best and the brightest people. Something Beck would never say out loud, but he had been the key element in making all of it happen. Rocket would arrive by a shipping container, be actually taken to a pad in a truck by a couple of people, and then blasted into the orbit with a touch of a button. Mission control setups with dozens of people were antiquated. The stealth space company wanted as few people involved as possible. That actually was in large part because the company's major goal was to launch rockets from automated barges, which would pick up a rocket from the factory ferry, ferry it a few miles out onto the sea, and then send it on its way before actually having it returned to do the job again. So you add all of that up, and the vision sat somewhere between building a Ford and a FedEx of aerospace. It is hard. You are confident in what you are doing. You have to be, because you are leading it. You're running the procedure. You're calling to everybody. You're keeping everyone in check, and you're moving forward. But you cannot ever get cocky with it or feel like, oh, I've got this. There is that healthy level of nervousness that you should always have, especially with rockets. You've got to be on that adrenaline edge when you're like, I'm ready, and I'm looking at everything to make sure I do not miss something and I do not skip something important that actually will bite me later. Decades of history show that newly developed rockets often blow up during their early flights. The aerospace industry almost prides itself on the failures because the rocket science is supposed to be hard. The machines and the people who build them would not enjoy the same mystique if rockets always worked. When governments ran all of the rockets programs, the failures carried with them blows to national pride. But everyone knew that the United States or the Soviets would actually keep on trying because flying the rockets was an imperative. Now, a commercial rocket maker, however, has a different set of pressures. Investors, they want to see results. Employees want to believe they are working at the right company. Explosions raise the question, how long can we keep doing this before the money runs out? Rocket Lab had flown its Electron rocket successfully in November and December 2018 and again in March 2019. Astra had raised about 20 million in 2016 and then another 75 million in 2018. Rocket Lab launched more of its Electrons in May, June, August, October, and in December 2019. DARPA launched a challenge, and it began in earnest. The government body sent a film crew to Astra's headquarters to document the launch of Rocket 3. Against the spirit of the competition, DARPA had controversially stacked everything in Astra's favor. Of course, outsiders in the aerospace industry watching Astra's travails had more sober opinions. Astra's initial idea to build a rocket super quickly, fly it, and then learn from its failures had actually an appeal. Most people, however, assumed that the company would have been more successful by this point. In all likelihood, you've never heard of Max Polyakov until now, which is both surprising and not. After Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, Polyakov has risked more of his personal fortune on the grand gamble in space than any other human. He has actually plowed 200 million of his own money into the rocket startup Firefly Aerospace. According to the information on the internet, Polyakov ran something called New Sphere Venture Partners, although what the organization did remained vague. By the start of 2016, Firefly was the talk of the new aerospace industry. More than 25 companies around the world had actually announced plans to build small rockets and fly them into orbit. In the middle of 2022, a company in Silicon Valley called Leo Labs had raised more than $100 million to build a network of radar stations all around the globe. The network was designed to look up into space and track every object in low Earth's orbit, including satellites, old rocket bodies, and any debris left from collisions and explosions. The big stuff was easy enough to spot, but Leo Labs' technology was so good that it could actually pick up objects just a couple of centimeters in size. United States had developed its own radar system with this type of work and shared much of its data openly, but in 2022, its systems could no longer keep up with everything being blasted into space. Founded in 2015, Leo Labs had bet that low Earth orbit would actually need some sort of management to avoid turning into a catastrophe. The most notable recent spray of debris had arrived in 2021 when Russia had chosen to shoot down one of its own satellites with a missile, just to remind other countries that it could eliminate satellites on a whim. When the satellite was destroyed, it broke into more than 1,500 pieces. Now, to make sure that their satellites do not collide, companies such as SpaceX and Planet Labs pay Leo Labs to find their machines in space and keep track of their movements. In 2022, Leo Labs was sending out an astonishing 400 million collision alerts per month. The story of Leo Labs is the story of the new space race in a nutshell. We have reached a point where a 50-person startup has actually emerged as the air traffic controller system for low Earth orbit. It is comforting that a company doing this type of work exists, but it's also unsettling that such a task has been taken over by the private commercial sector. You see, billions upon billions of dollars have been pumped into hundreds of space startups. Planet has a dozen rivals. Rocket Lab, Astra, and Firefly have 24 more. The orgiastic SPC bubble increased investor interests in commercial space, built as economies around the world, but as economies around the world slowed down in early 2022, biting those into reality, returning into the financial markets, money became tight again. And there you have it. When the heavens went on sale. Now, please do help out. It is easy. Simply like it so more people can enjoy it. Share it too and spread the word. Do leave a comment and share your thoughts. Subscribe to my channel and stay up to date. And the link to this book, well, it's in the description below. So buy it. Read. Never stop learning, especially learning about yourself and about nature. So gift yourself by taking the free human needs test on my website and find out what actually motivates you, what innate human need is driving all of your decisions and your behavior. And if you feel you are ready to improve your self-awareness, your social awareness, your self-management, and relationship management even further, well, do check out my Master of Life Awareness program. The links are in the description below. Thank you. Love and respect.